Boom, 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 boom. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Hey Hodinkee, where we talk about things that come from space. We've got a question from a reader who is wondering where meteorite dials come from, and we're going to talk about that and a few other things as well. Thanks for joining us, and let's get started.
Hey Hodinkee, I need a watch. One watch to wear every single day for the rest of my life. I'm torn between the discontinued Rolex OP39 in white and the no-date Submariner. What would you choose?
It's Submariner.
Submariner, sorry.
You know, this question is like, I feel like there's a Disney princess song 15 to 20 minutes into the movie that goes along with this question. You know, like when the character is like singing about who they are and what they yearn for, but nobody's listening, but they're going to come into their own, you know, like 2 hours in. So like, what's the one watch I will wear for the rest of my life? You have to imagine me as a Disney princess. Anyway, so here's the thing. Either one of those watches is a watch that you could wear for the rest of your life, for sure, the Submariner or the OP. Now, I personally think the OP is a little bit more timeless than the Submariner, which is a watch that is also timeless, but it's timeless in a different way than the OP is timeless. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I understand the question because obviously you have to pick one or the other. You're at a point in your life where it's either the OP or it's the Submariner. But the reality is you're probably going to end up with both, and they're both probably going to be around 10 to 15 years from now. So I would say just pick whichever one appeals to you most in the here and now, enjoy wearing it, and you know you're going to end up with both. I mean, you wouldn't be here if you weren't the sort of person who was going to end up with both. I'd start with the OP, though.
Hey Hodinkee, if you could ask fine watchmakers to devote all their efforts to making one big improvement to their watch movements, what would it be and why?
I would want an oscillator that vibrates at an extremely high frequency for better rate stability, and I would want it to not be a lever escapement, but it would have to run at a pretty high frequency, and I think that if it were driven electrically, maybe that would be an advantage as well, because instead of going through a complex service, you would just replace a battery every few years. Maybe it could even be solar powered. It's just crazy enough to work. So I'm kidding, of course. What I'm actually talking about is quartz movements, and I'm talking about them because I feel like in terms of quantum leaps forward in timekeeping technology for the wrist, that ship sailed a long time ago. Citizen makes a watch that's accurate to 1 second a year. It's solar-powered quartz. You're not going to beat that no matter what you do with mechanical movement. It's nice to think that you can do something that is going to really be a quantum leap forward, a dramatic leap forward in accurate timekeeping technology. But the truth is, Rolex right now has a superlative chronometer spec of +2 seconds per day, -2 seconds per day, maximum deviation in rate. That's extremely hard to beat, and anecdotally, a lot of their watches actually do better than that. You can say something similar about Omega, very accurate watches, which they produce in very large volumes. The problem of producing an accurate mechanical movement at an industrial scale has essentially been solved. And everything else for the last at least 25 years, for the length of time that I've been following watches and watchmaking, has been incremental. I mean, silicon as a material in watches, it's great. It produces better long-term rate stability, arguably because of the absence of oils at the impulse surfaces. But it's not a quantum leap forward. So I think that what we're looking at now is really the gradual evolution of mechanical horology towards greater and greater reliability across a larger and larger number of watches manufactured per manufacturer per year. If you want a quantum leap forward, you missed it in 1969. I was there in 69. I was there. I saw it all, man. I saw the dark crystal rise up over the horizon and overshadow mechanical horology. And, you know, I mean, fine.
Hey Hodinkee, I'm amazed whenever watch brands make meteorite dials. Where do they get the meteors?
From space. From space is the short answer. Interesting question, actually. Where do they get the meteors from? Or we should say meteorites. It's a meteor until it hits the Earth, and then it's a meteorite. First thing to understand is that meteorites are not particularly rare. You can buy meteorite earrings on Etsy for $25, which might come as a little bit of a shock. The meteorites used for watch dials come from fragments of meteors that have fallen to Earth as meteorites, which are gathered up by companies which specialize in supplying meteorites to jewelers, to companies that make meteorite dials, and so on and so on. Now, one of the most famous meteorites, and one that's actually used in a lot of watch dials, is something called the Gibeon meteorite, which hit the Earth's atmosphere and exploded at a high altitude somewhere over what is currently the country of Namibia. And something like 20,000 kilos of material has been gathered from this particular meteorite. You can't use just any meteorite for decorative purposes and for a watch dial. Meteorites come in different compositions, and the Gibeon meteorite was what's called an iron-nickel meteorite. It can come from two places. The first place is from a protoplanet that developed at the very beginning of the solar system, but was not stable enough to become a fully grown planet. It broke up for some reason, and its molten or semi-molten iron-nickel core drifted through the cosmos, slowly cooling off for millions of years, and as it cooled, well, very, very large, beautiful crystals of iron and nickel formed slowly over a 10 to 15 million year period, producing an almost jewel-like structure by which manufacturers of meteorite dials set high store. The other place that they can come is from an exploding star. So both of those sources are very, very ancient. The Gibeon meteorite is probably as old as the solar system, so we're talking 4 to 4.5 billion years. And what you do is you take that piece of meteorite that you have and you slice it very thin, and you treat it with an acid to etch away any impurities, and you can actually see the pattern formed by these beautiful crystals, which is called a Wittgenstein pattern, after a dude named Wittgenstein. And that's what a meteorite dial is, and that's where they come from. And it's kind of interesting to look at your wrist, if you have a meteorite dial watch, to look at it and say to yourself, this is something that is as old as the planet I'm standing on, possibly older.